What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
Interesting. What do I strongly suspect but have no proof? Well, I mean, so I don't think, yeah, I strongly suspect that there isn't sort of a higher entity and things of that sort. But I don't have proof of that. So maybe that's one.
Yeah. What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
Is this like a what are your conspiracy theories? Is that
yeah.
I don't know if I have any of those. I don't know. I'll go with something boring like my this research idea I've been working on this afternoon is going to work
out. Sure. Well, yeah, that I imagine you have the conviction of that kind, but we all kind of just have to otherwise.
That's right. I mean, that's a pretty sort of necessary requirement, I think, to keep going.
Yeah. What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
What do I strongly suspect but I have no proof of?
Like, what's a conspiracy that you believe in?
It's a conspiracy that I believe. Actually, I'm a type of person that I really need to have proof to believe something. So that's yeah, I don't remember any particular thing. Usually I need proof, like to believe something. Without proof, it's hard to it's hard for me to accept.
Fair enough. What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of? Like, what are your conspiracy theories?
Oh gosh. Oh, I don't even know. Like, yeah, I really can't think of anything for this one. It's one of those things where you kind of wish you'd be like, okay, here are some common ones. Like, what do you think of these? But like the recall is not working.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that the common ones like, you're not going to turn out to be a flat earther. Like, I think I'm pretty confident about that.
Yeah. No, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything that I believe.
What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of? Like, what are your conspiracy theories?
Oh, cool. I don't care whether P equals NP. Because I'm really, really, really interested in what happens in practice, and therefore, I know this isn't quite the answer, but it's sort of related, because I strongly suspect P is in NP, but not in any. Sorry, I strongly suspect P not equal to NP, but not in any interesting way. Right. What I'm much more interested in is, can I solve a million variable mixed integer program? Well, we know we can if the million variables are arranged 1,000 by 1,000 in an image, and because we did that 10 years ago in computer vision or 20 years ago in computer vision. I see integer programming problems now where 10,000 variables is way too many. They take forever. So anyway, so that's something I strongly suspect, but I don't care about. I strongly suspect anything else. Yeah, we'll see.
What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of? Like, what are your conspiracy theories?
I feel that a lot of the things that we do, we don't have a proof of in work. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of our work is conspiracy theory that we try to prove. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I
Do-
don't. I
do
am
you-
sure. I'm sure. I believe in conspiracies, or like there is some fact that I can't explain,
Hmm.
but I can't really pinpoint other than work, deep learning.
And you find that this happening at work where you're like, I am sure this should work, or I'm sure this should not work, but like you haven't,
Absolutely,
you
absolutely. I mean, we work by intuition mostly than by proof.
proof. That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
Strongly suspect. Again, so many things. I don't know. I think I'm such a kind of scientific person that I don't actually have such a belief, because if I do think, I would try to go out and look for evidence for it, and if I don't find evidence, I would not like very strongly believe in it. Yeah. I think one of the things is that people in, for example, robotics are always saying that, I want to do this like humans, but I just think one of the things is that maybe that humans have no idea what they're doing. I usually suspect that everyone is doing everything in a completely different way. Like, people are trying to imitate muscles and so on, and I wonder if everyone's muscles activations are like actually different, and they are all individually learned unique controllers, and it's such a high dimensional thing that it reduces to the same movement, but it's actually different on the minute level, and then I shouldn't be trying to learn the minute things that humans are doing, because there's no solution. But
Interesting.
Just
That makes sense.
okay.
What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
Wow, I don't, let's see.
You could interpret this question as what are your conspiracy theories, but it doesn't have to be that.
Have any. I feel like there was something I was discussing with someone, not a conspiracy theory, but something that would answer this question, but I can't remember what it was. That's a very interesting question. I might have to pass because I'm not coming up with anything. Well, this is more like forward thinking. I am worried that we're, and it's COVID related again, I am worried that we may never recover from this. Not in terms of, medically, but in terms of either what I said about, trust in others, in terms of being able to be close to others without being paranoid about them having any sort of virus. I know mask wearing, so to contradict what I just said, I know that mask wearing has its benefits, but I kind of don't want to be doing it for too much longer. I'm fine with doing it for another year, maybe 2, but I don't want, I've seen discussion of people just, I guess in some countries, people just wear masks in general, and I don't mind it, but I kind of want to go back to the careless time where everything was great. And, I think, 2 years ago, I surely didn't think everything was great, but, compared to now where everything is just so much more serious, I want to go back to being naive, I suppose. So my thing that I'm suspecting, but I have no proof of, is that we're just not going to be able to recover from how we've been broken by this whole pandemic.
Yeah, makes sense. I recall at some point reading an article, I forget if it was New York Times or something, where they were talking about how anytime you have significant events of societal impact, like 9/11 with respect to air transport or what we're going through a pandemic, you never quite go back to the old times. There's sort of this new normal that settles in, and that new normal has just a certain different way of doing things. And I found that prospect depressing as well. Like the idea of just so as much as masks are necessary, eventually it would be nice to go back to the carefree life and being, close quarters with other humans without having to worry about things would be nice. Hugging new people would be nice.
I don't know if that's going to be possible in the near future without, we'll see. I guess the nice and not so nice thing about people is they get used to things very quickly and easily, but I'm not sure if that's a good thing. So meaning we'll get used to the new normal, but I don't know if that's how I want things to be.
What is something that you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
Oh, good question. Can it be technical, or does it?
No, technical is fine.
So I feel like, let's see, how do I even approach this? So I'm mentioning game theories, right? So right now we think about game theory as being an optimization in game theory as sort of agents chasing each other around, or at least this is the challenge to game theory. And I'm kind of I'm wondering, although I don't know if I think strongly suspect is too strong a term for what I feel. Is that I'm kind of wondering if there's a way to think about that, stepping outside of that kind of chasing around game and framing it in a context where you don't see it that way at all. I'm very much inspired by sort of the original GAN formulation and then the Wasserstein GAN, where you sort of step outside this kind of game dynamic and you sort of see it as, you've got like, you can break apart the game dynamic and you can do this optimization, which you then regularize and then give a signal to the other agent to train. And I'd love to think that there was that kind of relationship in the context of game theory. So maybe it's worth saying why I care about game theory, because this is more of a high level thing that I think game theory is a really, really interesting problem. But I'm not like, this is not an area I'm particularly actively engaged in research, but why I think it's really interesting is that, and the direction of game theory that I think is really interesting is areas where you have a kind of a competitive relationship with other agents, but also a cooperative. Actually, you've done work in this area, a cooperative relationship with other agents, right? I find that dynamic really, really interesting, and one that I think is going to become really important in the world, right? Like we essentially live in this all the time, right? Where where we have our own objectives, and yet we can which are not the same as everybody else's, yet we can go farther in our own objectives if we learn to cooperate with others. And how we do that is a really interesting problem at every scale, right? Like this is true of on the international stage between governments, and this is true of individuals and just trying to get to work, right, in traffic, right? This is true at every scale. And I'm fascinated by that dynamic, and that in game theory, unless you're clever, the answer is usually bad news, right? You fall into defect in an iterated prisoner's dilemma, right? Whereas, are there strategies that allow us to robustly get out of that? And of course, there are some, but that space I think is really, really interesting. Just from a human progress point of view, I think this is one of the places where maybe AI has something interesting to offer.
I hope so, because the search for positive sum games of sufficiently long horizon in the middle of what seems like just a zero-sum competition feels tremendous value. Like isn't that how we derive any sort of meaning to civilization, by just like, at least in locally, temporally bounded regions, coming up with positive sum games. Let's just cooperate because it helps everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So coming up with algorithms that step outside of that dynamic would be amazing. But I'm most interested in cases where we're not necessarily like there are approaches, and I think these are great, but personally I'm not that interested in approaches that essentially change the nature of the game, right? Where you're saying, okay, well now I'm just going to declare these two people these two agents as a member of a team, for example, right? That you can do that, but this is a case where I'm really interested in algorithms in the context of a game structure where we're not changing the rules necessarily. Yeah.
I hope you find something interesting.
Me too. Yeah. Well, I hope we find things.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of? This could be taken to mean what are your conspiracy theories, but in a negative light, but in a positive light, it could just be convictions that you haven't acquired or you haven't pointed to data for.
So I guess in the realm of academia, I had a graduate student once who like had conspiracy theories about who was using his like open source software, and he was very wary that I think like hedge funds were using his NLP software to, I don't even know, like predict things or trade stocks based on some signal in there. And I know that must be happening, or I know that there must be people using these tools in different ways, but I don't know how frequent that is or how that exists. And I think like the question of like, is there really someone inside a hedge fund reading random grad student papers and then stealing their code or using their code or whatever? But he had this like strategy where he would write like kind of licenses that would be like, you can use this for everything, but like, I don't know, these 4 companies are not allowed to use my thing. And I always liked that as a conspiracy theory, because I thought in some sense it's kind of nice that someone's watching, even if you're particularly not using it in this way.
That's a fascinating theory. I thought where it would go is that you start putting in Easter eggs or things in the code that are pinging certain machines.
Yeah, I guess he could have done something like that, but I don't know. I think in practice, probably what it meant was that no one used his code because non-standard licenses are like really bad. But I liked how much he cared.
Okay. What is something that you strongly suspect but don't have any proof of? This could be in a positive sense of a conviction, in a negative sense of a conspiracy theory.
Are there positive conspiracy theories? There should be. I guess Santa Claus. So this seems blasé, but like I generally believe most people are inherently reasonable if they're given the resources necessary to sustain themselves and build social relationships. Like, I think the actual rate of things like psychopathy is, not that high in the human population. And a lot of the evil we see in the world really just comes down to like poor distribution of resources or inadequate care or just cycles of abuse and things like this. And I don't have great evidence of this. There's localized studies where, if you pay for childcare and rent for a bunch of people in a community, overall outcomes go up. But I suspect that most awful things come from awful circumstances, not from awful people.
And where do awful circumstances come from?
The same place that chips come from, right? A bunch of people try to do what they think is right in the moment and creating systems that don't serve everybody.
What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of?
Oh, I love this question. I think there are several, but maybe one of them. So, like, this is completely subjective and speculative, and ungrounded thoughts. But I think language is really important for artificial intelligence and common sense modeling as well, especially if we want to have a scale coverage of concepts and the ability to reason about compositional concepts. It's easy to believe that, oh no, logical forms, we can always define some constants and predicates and compose over them. But wait a minute, I mean, you can try to reconstruct natural language unnecessarily through logical forms, and nobody ever succeeded in doing so beyond very confined toy problems. And through natural language, because humans learn so much through language, it's true that we also learn from interactions and other modalities, but we also learn much faster and much more efficiently through languages. When I advocate language, I'm not saying that language is the only modality that we should worry about. It's just that integration of that will be really, really important. And perhaps logic, the conventional form of logic, cannot really succeed in there. And we should really integrate the full scope of language directly into AI models.
I like how passionate you got suddenly on that subject, but it's
yeah, I get excited when this is a hard position to take though, because it's like, what? Logic is correct and language is kind of dirty. It's a variable and it's ambiguous, and how do you possibly, but really that's how humans learn, through this ambiguous vehicle of communication. And relevant to this question, we discussed earlier how Google may or may not have correct knowledge out there, but still, that's really the best way for us to acquire knowledge, answer question and answer knowledge. We cannot really communicate through logical forms. That in order to reach that sort of scale and coverage of concepts, which is in the infinite space. So,
but to be fair to the other side, we cannot communicate through logical forms. Perhaps is just a deficiency that must be overcome eventually.
We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. Language is fascinating intellectual objects that we have.
Yeah.
Are we actually able to create some sort of annotated syntactic, semantic, or logical parse output that can match the original meaning space of a language? And I'm skeptical, but on the other hand, like somehow really better grounding that in the physical world through interaction. Now that's also very, 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 very important. I'm very excited about that direction. You're doing a lot of that.
Yeah.